Good morning. This is Michelle from We R We Genealogy. And today we're going to continue on this page that we created yesterday, The Slaves of Eliza Pickens. And what we need to do now to complete things is to record on a profile who each of these persons were. And this first person came from Elizabeth's father, George Barksdale. So we need to record Elsie on her own profile and give history to her, where she came from, who she belonged to, who her slave owners were, where she lived. Um, we don't know very much information about Elsie except that she was listed in the will of George Barksdale, the father of Elizabeth Pickens. So let's go to WikiTree and we're going to open up Add a New Person, and we're going to put her name in here. And how exactly did they spell it? Elsey. Now, we don't know Elsie's last name, but we do know that she belonged to George Barksdale. So when you have an enslaved person that you don't know their last name, you write, for the profile's sake, you write the last name of the person who owned them. And so we're going to put Barksdale in here. But she was also owned by Eliza Pickens, so we're going to put Pickens in here. That way, if someone comes to search their ancestor and they know Elsie belonged to a Barksdale or a Pickens, she'll be easily found when someone searched for her. Now, we do not know her birth date. The only information we have about her is that she belonged to George Barksdale and that she was given to his daughter. So, what do we do about birth date? Well, George Barksdale wrote in his will in 1793 that Elsie was going to be given to Elizabeth. So we know she was alive and was born before 1793. So that's what we're going to use for her birth date. And we're going to select the Before This Date button. Now, we don't know where she was born, but we do know that George Barksdale wrote his will, and his will was in the Charleston, South Carolina will book. So I was looking through his will trying to decide maybe where he lived. Sometimes on the first page of the will, it will say exactly where they're writing their will from. Let's see if George wrote that. In the name of God, amen. Considering the uncertainty of life, it does not say. So it just says he has a plantation. So we are going to write down for her birth Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where the will was located. And she was born before 1793. We don't know where she was born, so we're going to select the uncertain button. And then her death date, we're going to put after George died. So when did George Barksdale die? His will was proven March 14th, 1794. So he was deceased by that time. So we're going to write that she died after 1794. But we don't know when, and we don't know where. So again, we're going to write Charleston. And we're going to put uncertain. Now we need to say something about Elsie. Okay, so we've written what we know about Elsie. We're going to select the first page of this will, and I'm using my WikiTree sourcer to save the source, and I'm going to put the source here. The will of George Barksdale. Now I can create this. There are no other Elsie Barksdales. Okay, so when you create the profile, then you need to select these radio buttons, what you know for sure and what you don't know. We're certain her name was Elsie. We are not certain what her last name was. Her last name could be Smith for all we know. We don't know. So we're going to select uncertain. We have our radio buttons selected around the dates and around the places. Now the first thing that we're going to do here is we are going to put categories in that go above the biography. So we know that the will was in Charleston, so she most likely lived in Charleston. The next thing we're going to put is the slave last name at birth. We do not know what her last name is. So that is a sticker that is going to tell us, anybody that looks at her profile, that these may not be her last names that are on the profile. We know that she was African American, she was enslaved, and she was a South Carolinian. So I placed both of those stickers. I placed South Carolina sticker under the African American sticker. The African American sticker goes on all African American profiles, whether they were enslaved or not. Now, she lived in Charleston County, South Carolina, but she was enslaved, so we need another category up here. Let's see, let's go to she was a slave in Charleston. Now, we're also going to put another category here. She needs to be linked, which means we don't have any children for her. When we find a child for her and we add a child to this profile, we can take off the needs part and she will be linked when we link a child to her. But right now we don't have any children for her, and so we're not putting any links to her. So she needs to be linked. We don't really know any more information about her except that she went to Eliza Pickens. That she, after, or before, excuse me, before Elizabeth was married to Pickens, she was a Barksdale, but she ended up as a Pickens if she was still alive when Elizabeth got married. We don't know. Again, we don't know for sure. So I stopped the video for a moment to see if I could find George Barksdale's profile. And I did find it because what I wanted to see was George had slaves that he bequeathed to his children, but did he also have a probate inventory? And yes, he did. So I want to see if Elsie is in his probate inventory. So let's open it up. Let's see, there it is. The inventory of the estate of Mr. George Barksdale Sr. So it shows animals that he has, and here we are. This is where you're going to find the enslaved in the probate inventory. Let's see. Sarah and child, Caesar and Ishmael, and they're listed as a family. Primus, Lydia, and 6 children. Their 6 children are Phyllis, Flora, Elsie, there she is, Lydia, Jimmy, and Pompey, and they were valued at 360 pounds. And then there's Ned, Silly, and 1 child, Jacob. And I do not know what this means. I think it says 160, 140 maybe. 360 and 140 is 500, so it equals 500 pounds. So, but the exciting thing that we've seen here is Elsie is listed with her sisters and her parents, Primus and Lydia. So we're going to be able to write that down now in Elsie's profile. She was born to Primus and Lydia, and she belonged to George Barksdale. So let's put this in the beginning. Elsie, child of Primus what was her mother's name? Lydia? Lydia. Okay, lived in Charleston County, South Carolina. Elsie was bequeathed in the will to Elizabeth Barksdale. Now let's put down here, Elsie was listed in George Barksdale's probate inventory with her family, and they were valued at 360 pounds. Let's see, I'm going to put the pound sign right in front of there. There we go. If you wonder how to do the pound sign, you press Alt key 0163, and that makes the pound sign. So now we need to put the source for this probate inventory. Okay, now that really, let's find out what the date of that probate inventory was. April 18th, 1794. So we know she was still alive in 1794. Now, one more thing I'm going to do is go through here and see if there's any other people named Elsie. There may be somebody else named Elsie. No, there are no other persons named Elsie. So that is the correct person in this probate inventory. Elsie belongs to Primus and Lydia. So now we need to write down here at the bottom, we're going to write down who her slave owners were. Now, I have not created this page yet, but I'm going to put that on there because now that I know George Barksdale had a lot of slaves, the page has not been created on his profile either. So once that page gets created, I will put that link on Elsie's profile. So now, before we finish and close everything, we need to select the ID of George Barksdale, and we need to put that on her profile. And we're going to put that at the bottom of the profile as well, underneath the slave owner heading. And we're going to look for Elizabeth Barksdale Pickens, and we're going to get her ID. Let's see. Now let's hit the preview and see what this looks like. Whoops. Okay, so that's telling me that this is incorrect. There we go. And now you can see the sticker that's bright, and it tells us we don't know what her last name really was. It could have been Barksdale, but we don't know yet. Okay, and that's why you always hit the preview button. In case you make a mistake, you can go back and change it before you save everything. Okay. Let's see. Everything looks fine. We don't know anything else about Elsie. So let's select Added Information and Categorization and do a full save. We're not quite done yet, though. Now we have Elsie. We're going to take her ID and we're going to put it on the page, The Slaves of Eliza Pickens. And she was the very first one. So we put her ID on this page. Preview it. Make sure it looks correct. There it is with the link. And then we can save this page as well. Now she has a link. And you will do the same thing with the rest of the enslaved persons. On this next person, Nanny, you will write in her profile that she belonged to Eliza Pickens and that she was bequeathed to Eliza's daughter, Mary B. Anderson. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back with another video. Bye.